Hey, good evening. Good evening. Good to be with you. I am excited to talk with you tonight about how to not be a victim to your to do list. Hi, I'm Cindy Baker. I'm ADHD coach for entrepreneurs and professionals who want to um, get back control of their time, get more done, and scale their business. So, if that is you, you are in the right place. And so I've got a couple of quick tips and just curious though, if you are watching live, if you could just say hi, um, let me know where you're watching from. And if you're watching the replay, and lots of people do, then just make a comment and let me know that you're watching the replay. And so I'm going to pull it up here on where I'm supposed to. Awesome. Okay, cool. All right. So we are going to talk about how to not be a victim of your to-do list. So how many of you feel like your to-do list is just this big bossy thing hanging over your head? So when it comes to habits for managing ADHD, and you don't have to have ADHD to get something out of these tips, I just share them from an ADHD perspective because I have ADHD. Um, but when it comes to habits for managing ADHD, there's no one size fits all solution that works for everybody. You know, we've all heard the expert advice: do it first thing in the morning, do it for 30 days, start small, give yourself a cheat day. And that may work some of the time, but it doesn't work all the time for everybody. So the most important thing is that you know yourself and you know what works for you. And I know if you have an ADHD brain like mine, it responds aggressively to stimulation. Um, if it triggers our neurotransmitters, then we're going to follow it. And often that means starting tasks but never finishing them, and losing track of time and working on what interests us and not what's most important. So the idea behind a to-do list is that it gives you a place to write down things so you don't have to worry about remembering them. I have a horrible short-term memory. I have to set timers. If I put something in the oven and I don't set a timer, it burns. And I'm that way about so many things. If I don't have a reminder, then I forget about it. And so you're busy and your thoughts come and go before you have a chance to act on them. So I just want to share a few quick tips for your to-do list. And again, if you are watching live, if you could say hi in the chat, and if you're watching on the replay, just say replay. If you have any questions, put those in the comments, or any kind of comments that you want to make, something that jumps out at you. I'd love to kind of know that. So just a few things that you might want to try. The first one is to separate short-term and long-term to-do lists. Um, and you don't want to have too many lists. And some people will say, have a list for this, a list for that. And, I think two or three is plenty, but I would separate them out into short-term and long-term. So long-term, if you keep writing it over and over when you make a new list, if you keep doing that, you're going to stop paying attention to it. Plus, you feel disappointed that you never seem to get around to doing it. You're like, I'm writing this again on my list. So make a separate list for those type of things, and you have a different plan of action um, for tackling those. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. The second is focus on specific actions. Um, the the more specific, the better on your to-do list. Don't just put on your list exercise, because your brain is going to skip right over that. But if you write 25 crunches, for instance, I'm just making something up, but that's a measurable action step. Your brain is much more likely to do that, to focus on it. And just try it for about a week. It's amazing. The more specific you get, the more likely you are to do those things. And back when I talked about long term, you need to break up big items into separate steps. Um, that's super important. It could be anything, work related, or even like uh, clean the kitchen. Okay, and don't write clean the kitchen on your list. And I don't know, I'm probably like messing you up. You're thinking, well, what's wrong with writing clean the kitchen? It's too vague. It's too much. Write the steps, which means you are going to have to write more, but it's satisfying to cross those things off. So instead, write down empty the dishwasher, wipe down the counters, sweep the floor, etc. Then you can cross each item off, and it gives your brain a little hit of dopamine and gets you motivated. Because if you're waiting for motivation to hit, for you to tackle that to-do list, that's not a good strategy. Just like in sales, we say hope is not a good strategy. When it comes to productivity, waiting for motivation is not a good strategy, because it might not come. You have to create it yourself. And breaking things into separate steps is one of the ways that you can do that, because it's almost like a little game that you play with yourself. Another tip that you could try, and it depends on how you're wired, but you can try drawing instead of writing. Um, Mind map or a graphic organizer. That might make more sense to you. You might draw a circle in the middle that says clean kitchen, and then little spokes that stick out to the side that say all the different parts. That may visually be what you need to see to really make it all fit together. Another tip. How am I doing first? Let me check in with you guys. Are you making any comments? Y'all are so quiet. Monday night is like, we just want to listen. It's okay. But if you are watching this, if you're watching the replay, I would love to know your comments and your thoughts and your questions. That would really help. So another tip is having a brain dump list. Now, I do this a lot. Well, not a lot, but often I do it, I guess I would say. When I do it, it's not necessarily a lot, but I try to brain dump on a regular basis. And what that is just a place where you just write down every task or project that comes to mind. Whenever it comes up, you just dump it. You're dumping it out of your brain onto paper. And then later you transfer that to one of your action item lists, whether it be long-term, short-term, next week, today. But the brain dump, there's something about just knowing that you're not going to have to hold on to that information that's very satisfying and calming, because having to remember things is stressful. And as long as I know that I've got it on paper and out of my head, that really does help. And if it's keeping you up at night, make your to-do list right before bed. So get those things out of your head onto your list instead of laying there going, in the morning, I got to remember to put this on my list. Just make the list before you get out of bed. A lot of people do that, and it works really well. The next thing is choose the 3 most important things and number them. And I do that. I do this, and I encourage my coaching clients to do this. But 3, you may do more than 3, but I only want you to write 3, your 3 most important things. And what that does is it forces you to prioritize. You want to pick the most urgent and most important. They have to be things that if you don't do them, there are going to be negative consequences. Not just it'd be nice to kind of a thing, but I've got to do. So your brain needs to know, what are my priorities today? Some people they'll take their to-do list and they'll number it with a 1-3-5 approach. And that's like, I'm going to accomplish one big item, 3 medium-sized items, and 5 small items every day. I tried that and it didn't really work for me. But I had a client that said it did work for her. So you might want to try that. One big thing, 3 medium sized, and 5 small. And how you define that is up to you. But make sure, the things that have a deadline, you have to make sure you get those things done. Those need to be bumped up in the priority. Okay. Another tip, what if things don't get crossed off? These things that don't get crossed off, and I know you have them because we all do, but I want you to ask yourself why. Why did those things not get crossed off? Is the task too big? If so, break it into smaller subtasks, and then you can cross off each little step. Is it something that you're dreading and you're procrastinating about? Maybe you promise yourself a small reward for accomplishing it. Something to get you going. And then if it's something that you're dreading, maybe just pick one part of it and you start there. And you just do the next right thing in front of you. Some items lose their importance over time and they don't need to be on your list anymore. If you find yourself continually rewriting the same thing over and over and it never gets done, maybe you need to make a separate list that's just it would be nice to, or maybe one day kind of thing. And about once a month, you schedule a time to look at those and then put them on your calendar if you're going to really do them. Something else that my husband and I do that works really well for us is we keep a running grocery list on the same place on the counter with a pen right there. And the pen stays right there. I get really upset if somebody takes that pen. So we both know now that pen goes with that pad of paper and it's right there by the coffee maker. And that's where we go and add things when we notice that we're running out of something. And, that way you don't have to remember it all when it's time to make your grocery list. Another good idea for grocery shopping is to have a kind of a set list with, you can just type it in a Word document, things that you frequently get, and then you just print it off and you put a check mark by the ones that you need that day or that particular grocery run. And then add other stuff at the bottom. But then that way you don't have to keep rewriting over and over. So think about, your to-do list. Is it a written list? I like paper. I like written. I've tried digital and there is a little bit of satisfaction with that, but I just love crossing things off. It makes me feel good. And when I have everything crossed off, you know what I love to do? I love to just rip it into little pieces. I don't know why. It just makes me feel good. So is that you? Do you like a written list or do you like an app on your phone? What works for you? Write down your to-do list. That's so important. Get it out of your head and onto paper. And then set your priorities. Work your way through the items. That's the way to get things done. If that doesn't work, don't beat yourself up. Don't. Some people think, well, there's something wrong with me. I didn't get everything done. No, it's not that you have no willpower and you can't stick to the list. And oh me, why can't I use a simple tool? There's something wrong with me. Don't do that. If the classic to-do list works for you, great. I use them. But if it doesn't work, here are some other options. There's nothing wrong with you. We're just going to tweak the tool of the to-do list to work for you. Okay. So here's something you might want to try. You might want to try a could-do list. If you could resist doing things the same way everybody else does, just the thought of a to-do list makes you not want to do those things. You're like a rebel. So change the vocabulary. As soon as you have to do something, it's the last thing you want to do. So kind of do the reverse psychology. A could-do list reminds you that you can choose to complete that task or not. I could do this, but not a to-do. Um, Sometimes that helps people. And a variation might would be a might could list. Another, I'll credit this to Gretchen Rubin and Elizabeth Craft, is a to-do list. And that is cool because that's a list of everything that you've already accomplished. You'll be surprised and energized to see how much you've done. I had a business coach that encouraged me to do that one time because I was just wanting to be further ahead in my business. And she said, but look at all this past year that you've accomplished. And that was really encouraging. Giving yourself credit for your efforts makes it easier to keep going, right? Another great idea is a to-do list. And I do this sometimes. I'll have my list and then I pick my 3 most important things and then I add some other stuff, and that's my to-do list. And then I schedule specific times on a specific day in my calendar. If you don't do that, it's probably not going to happen. If you just have this big block of time and you just don't have a plan, you're probably not going to knock off much on your to-do list. But it's easy to feel overwhelmed when you look at all the errands and the tasks and the projects and aims that require our attention. And so sometimes instead of focusing on that entire list, just make a to-do list instead. I do that, and I find that it works really well. Hey, Kathy, I have a habit of writing things down but not looking back. Yeah, and you have to carry it with you or have it in a place that you look at frequently. And of course, if I'm on my computer, I always have it right there, right next to me, so I can look at it and cross things off. So, yeah. So if you guys are watching, that's all I've got for you. There's a lot more we could say, but I'm gonna save those for another time. So if you are watching this and you have some comments or some questions, feel free to put those in the comments. And if you're watching the replay, the same thing, I'll circle back and look at those. I am recording this live, but I do go back and look at your comments. And I'm recording this on Monday, March the 6th. And I wanted to let all of you know that on Thursday, March the 9th, if you have not already attended my workshop called Get More Things Done System for Entrepreneurs, I have a free live webinar Thursday night, 7 p.m. Central Time. And you can sign up at www.getmoredonemasterclass.com. Getmoredonemasterclass.com. I'll put it in the chat as well. But love to have you attend. It doesn't cost anything, it lasts less than an hour, and it'll open your eyes to what's possible. I think you'll be amazed. So good to see all of you. I hope you have a great night, and I'll see you next time. Bye.